Bulldog Hanover, the Bulldog does it again. Bulldog Hanover, Rocky Road Hanover, and then Tattoo Artist. It's Bulldog Hanover, 1:45 and 4. There it is, the fastest mile in harness racing history.
Hello, it's Bob Pandolfo. Welcome to Power Brush with Pandy, a harness racing video today on May 20th, 2025. There was an interesting stakes race at the Meadowlands on Saturday night, and it was the Cutler, Arthur J. Cutler Memorial FanDuel Open Trot. One of the best Meadowlands trot race so far this year, as far as the class type races. First kind of stakes race, trot stakes race of the year at the Meadowlands. So the interesting thing about this is that you have a number of horses coming off a layoff, but the horse that went off the favorite was Antononi S, who came over from Sweden this year. Now in my selections, I picked Periculum, and I said that it's a tricky race to figure out the odds with 5 horses coming off the layoffs, but I do feel that this classy horse is the deserving favorite. And you can see I made him 2-1. Antononi S, I made 6-1. Now this is my line. This is not the morning line. This is based on what I think their chances are. So you might ask, well, geez, why did you, put Antononi S 4th instead of like 2nd? And why did you put his odds so much higher than Periculum? Well, this is something that you have to watch, this time of year, because the horses that are coming back, the classy horses, they're going to have the advantage most of the time over the horses that were racing during the winter. Because the horses that are racing during the winter normally aren't as good. That's why they're racing during the winter. If you have a really top class horse, you're going to race in the stakes season. What they did with Antononi S was very smart, though. He had some European class. The trotters, generally speaking, in Europe, especially in Sweden and France, are better than the trotters we have here because, first of all, that's all they race are trotters, so they have more trotters. Their breeding program is, very strong. It's very rare that you'll have an American trotter that can beat the best trotters in Europe. It has happened. Moneymaker was a top mare who raced well over in Europe. Mac Lobel. There certainly have been a few. Peace Corps, great trotting mare. But they have a lot of horses like that. They just they don't race pacers, so they have a lot of trotters, and they just have powerful trotters. So this horse had some European class. They bought this horse. I don't know what they paid for the horse, but they bring him over in January, and they get 2 kind of easy races in at the Meadowlands, as you can see here, non-winners of 12. And he just, wins these races impressively and very easily. Then they step him up to non-winners of 20, and he finishes 2nd. Then they get an easy win at Pocono. So now they're set up, nicely for this series at Yonkers. They had the John Brennan series. John Brennan was a horseman who passed away, unfortunately, after, COVID. And he's very well known in New York, and they named the series after him. So they go over the Yonkers, they tune up with this win in this race on March 19th. Then they go into the series, and now they're racing for $30,000 purses. They rip off 3 wins in a row, and then they go into the final for $132,000, and these are all easy wins. So it was smart to race this horse during the winter because they probably knew he's not, a top class horse who can race against the best, will beat the best trotters in the country. But against these horses that are racing during the winter, he can dominate, and he did dominate. These were all easy wins, and they racked up. Look at this. They raced him 10 times this year, all in this country, won 8 races for $151,000. So then they bring him back to the Meadowlands, and he makes a break from post 9, and then they put him into the Cutler. But again, these horses he's beating, if you look at all their names, these are not the kind of horses he's facing in this race. Here he's got to face, some tough older horses like Lexus Cody, 5-year-old Air Ferrari, who had a big season last year, and of course he's got to face Periculum, who won the Breeders' Crown. You can see right here, October 26th. No, he didn't win the Breeders' Crown. I'm sorry, he missed by a nose in the Breeders' Crown. So he missed by a nose right here in the Breeders' Crown final for open trotters. But he got beat by Winner's Bet, who was finishing off the year really strong, and he got beat by a nose. He won the Maple Leaf $444,000 race. So he's a real powerful closing horse. As you can see, he has over $1 million in earnings, and he was coming off a layoff. But the thing is, the qualifier was very strong, and so Periculum looked really, ready to win, and he raced real well. He got a nice cover trip, and he got up. Antononi did a pretty good job. He raced well. He had the lead. He finished third, but again, Lexus Cody won 26-1. That was a really nice price. On my selections, I had 3 of the 4 horses. Of my 4 horses that I picked, 2 of them were in the money. I didn't have Lexus Cody in there, but again, I thought Periculum clearly should have been the favorite in this race. Antononi, yes, maybe 6-1. My odds were a little high, but still, I don't think he should have been more than about 4-1 in this race. And he went off a 6-5, so that was an underlay. So the public got fooled in this race because they didn't realize that he hasn't been beaten. He didn't beat any horses this winter that were as good as Periculum. He didn't beat any horses that were as good as Lexus Cody or Ari Ferrari, in my opinion. And you also had another horse coming in from Sweden here with Swanstedt who got bet. And there was Sir Pinocchio. This was a really good field. Oh well, even though Oh well went off at 24-1, he has post. That was because he had post 10. It was a really good stakes race, and he was an underlay. Periculum was probably a little bit of an overlay at 8-5. Although I don't know, I made him 2-1. It was a wide open race, but I just wanted to point that out. Though, watch that, because with horses coming back in stakes races, you want the ones that were top horses last year. You don't want the ones that were racing during the winter. Even a horse like this that was dominating, he was dominating because he wasn't racing against Periculum and horses as good as this. That's why he was dominating. So, and nowadays too, one of the things that's different too, a lot of horses will win off qualifiers. If you go back to when I first started in the business in the mid 70s, horses will come off layoffs and they would have a couple of prep races, so they wouldn't really train them down that fast. They don't do that anymore. Most of these trainers have their horses ready to go, and especially in these top barns like Ron Burke and Alegna, Swanstedt, these Nancy Tacker stable. They have their horses ready. They qualify them. They're ready to go. They train them down. They're not wasting any races. Now sometimes they'll get, if the race isn't a stakes race or if it's a lower purse, the driver will give the horse an easy trip. It depends on the driver. There's a couple of drivers that are kind of known for that. But even then, a lot of the times they're still trying to win. It depends. Scott Zeron is one of the ones that he tends to give him an easy trip if it's not a stakes race or something like that, and it's first time for layoff. And the other driver who does that is Dexter Dunn. They kind of save the horse. It's kind of like old school the way they drive those. Sometimes it's kind of ridiculous, especially with Zeron. They're both talented drivers, but the thing is that Zeron, sometimes when he drives the horse first time off the layoff, the horse could be the favorite, and he doesn't even, he just sits in with the horse, which is kind of questionable. If I was the judges at the track, there's a couple of times I probably would have fined them. But they go really easy on these drivers nowadays. So that's my main point, and I'll have more harness racing videos. There's a few things that I want to kind of catch up on. And but so thanks for tuning into Power Brush, and I appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. That really helps me out. Thanks.